Hello, in today's video, I'm sharing the best powder foundations for mature skin of all skin types, from oily to dry. Even if you haven't had success with powder foundation in the past, I truly think one of these will work for you. Powder foundation can be tricky because we want something that applies quickly to even out our skin tone, but that doesn't look powdery, and it needs to wear well throughout the day and not settle in fine lines, crease, or look cakey. That is a tall order for anyone of any age, but especially for those of us with mature skin, say 40 and over. And then come the skin type issues. If you have dry skin, you don't want your powder foundation to exaggerate or lift any dry or flaky areas. I deal with that sometimes on the perimeter of my face because I have oily combination skin and the outer part can sometimes be dry and flaky, but I can get shine and oil breakthrough in the center of my face. And if you have oily skin or combination skin that gets some shine, you know that powder foundation is prone to looking greasy and sliding off pretty quickly. Sometimes we think our skin is perfectly balanced, and then powder foundation comes along to prove us completely wrong. So I'll be sharing what skin types I think each of these powder foundations works best for as we go through the video. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new, and let's get into what I think are the best powder foundations for mature skin. I'm going in coverage order for the most part for this video. There will be some overlap with coverage because powder foundations are so versatile, but as best as I can, I'll be going from least to most coverage, and I do have a favorite powder foundation that I reach for the most. If you're a subscriber of mine, you probably know what that is, but just because it's my favorite doesn't mean it'll be yours. You might have a completely different skin type than I do. I think this first powder foundation is going to come as a surprise to you if you saw my initial thorough review of it. I have reviewed all of these thoroughly. I'll have my reviews linked for you down below, as well as all the products I'm sharing, as I always do. So this first one is LOreal Baked Balance and Brighten Color Correcting Foundation. This retails for around $36, although I have seen it for less on Amazon. LOreal does have an official Amazon storefront. There are 9 self-adjusting shades that match your skin tone. The swirled pigments give you some flexibility with shade matching. I've tried both light and medium, and I could wear both. Light is what you'll see in the clips today. This feels incredibly lightweight. It gives light to medium coverage that's smoothing, flattering, and doesn't look like powder. Now, the reason why you're probably surprised to see this in this video, if you saw my initial review, is because no matter what type of primer I put on before this, no matter what type of setting spray, no matter what I did, I look incredibly greasy and shiny about 2 to 3 hours in, and that continues throughout the day, and I do lose coverage by the end of the day. So why is this in this video? Because the first 2 to 3 hours are so beautiful. I can truly see why those with normal to dry skin love this so much, and even those with combination skin that maybe live in a less humid climate than I do. I live in one of the hottest, most humid climates here in the United States. Here in New Orleans, it's beyond humid most of the year and insanely hot probably 6 months out of the year. This is just not made for me with my skin type and the climate I live in, but if you live in a different climate and have combination skin, or if you have normal to dry skin, I think this is so incredibly beautiful. It's a non-powdery looking powder foundation that does nice things for your skin, and it's comfortable to wear. The next powder foundation on my list is Essence 16-Hour Cover and Last. This retails for $5.99. Now, when I first reviewed this, when it first launched, there were 5 shades. There are now 12. I have shade Classic Vanilla, which is a little bit light for me this time of year, but I can make it work with bronzer, no problem. This is a very creamy formula. I don't get any kick up from it when I apply it with a brush. It's not dusty. It's pretty invisible on my skin as I apply it. I can apply it with a brush or with a sponge, either the included sponge, which is somewhere else at this point, or a beauty blender, and it's nice either way. It's not powdery looking. It's lightweight and gives medium coverage. It's smoothing on texture, on pores, and evens out my skin tone beautifully and gives me me a natural, flattering, soft matte finish. Now, in major heat and humidity, without any primer or setting spray, I can get about 3 or 4 hours of good wear in before I get any shine breakthrough. But when I blot, the coverage isn't affected, and I can even touch up with this, which is kind of rare for a powder foundation. It doesn't cake up on itself, so it's a nice multitasking powder. I don't have to reserve it just for powder foundation coverage. Now, most powder foundations perform better for me with my climate and my skin type when I use a primer underneath to help with grip and when I use setting spray. This does fall into that camp, but if I don't wear primer and setting spray, things don't get bad. Because of the more matte finish, I think this is a great drugstore foundation for normal to oily skin. It's creamy, it's natural looking, the price point's fantastic, and it wears really nicely with primer and setting spray if you want to go that route. But if you have more normal skin and you get less shiny, you don't even need primer and setting spray. It's a really great drugstore powder foundation, and those are few and far between. Moving up the coverage ladder with a very different type of powder foundation at a very different price point, we have Natasha Denona HY-GLAM powder foundation. The full compact with the product and the casing is $55 and a refill is $39. There are 36 shades. My shade is N3 light neutral, which is a bit light, but I make it work. Now you're gonna see some redness around my nose where the foundation is wiped away. I was really sick when I was testing this foundation. It's not the foundation's fault. Nothing in the world would have held up to all the nose blowing and the nose wiping I was doing during those days. This does hold up on a normal basis. This is ultra silky and creamy and extremely smoothing on pores and texture, and gives a soft matte finish that feels soft and natural and smooth to the touch. It's not powdery or dry in the least. It gives natural, beautiful, flattering, medium buildable, I would say up to just under medium full coverage. I have dry under eyes, and this is the first powder foundation I have been able to wear under my eyes. I can actually set my under eyes with this if I want to do so. It's that creamy, smooth, and natural looking. Now, when I don't wear a primer, I do get some shine. I guess that's the trade-off for it looking so great on my dry areas. So I do use a primer with this for longevity and to keep shine at bay longer, and that works. This feels lightweight and hydrating on my skin. There are some fantastic skincare ingredients in here too. This is beautiful for all skin types. I think normal and dry skin, absolutely. An oily combination skin, you may need a primer, but it is still beautiful and it wears beautifully throughout the day. This is one of the creamiest powder foundations I've ever used, and I even like the little innovative sponge that's included too, which is just a thoughtful touch. Next is Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Foundation. This retails for $40. Now I'm seeing 50 shades on Fenty's website and 48 on Sephora's. The shade that I have is 230. It's a great match for me. This is an extremely smooth powder foundation. It's really versatile in terms of coverage. I can get from light to medium full coverage with this. It performs well on all areas of my face. The dry areas, if I have any dryness going on, as well as my shine prone areas too. It doesn't look powdery or cakey, even though it has a soft matte finish. It smooths my pores beautifully and it feels extremely lightweight. It wears longer with a primer, but it still wears great without one. And this is a powder foundation that I don't need a setting spray with. It looks great all day. It doesn't get shiny, and my dry areas are never exaggerated. But I think because it works so well at keeping my shine at bay, it does make me a little nervous to recommend it to those with dry skin. If you have dry skin and you've tried this, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you tried any of these actually. So to see how people with dry skin felt about this powder foundation, I decided to filter Sephora reviews by dry skin type, and I went through about 10 pages of reviews which dated back to January of 2021, and only 2 of the negative reviews said they didn't like this because of dryness. The other negative reviews were for color matching or something else. So I'll say, I think as long as your skin is prepped properly, I think this is worth trying, especially for those with normal to oily skin. But even if you have dry skin, it might be worth a shot. Every time I wear this, I'm always stunned at how well it wears for a powder foundation, and not needing a setting spray in my climate. I mean, that's practically a miracle. Next is another drugstore powder powder foundation. This is L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation in a powder. This retails for $16.99 in most places. I have seen it on their Amazon storefront for a little bit less sometimes. When this first launched, when I first reviewed it, there were 12 shades, but I'm now showing there are 20. The shade I have is 130 True Beige. Just like all the powder foundations in this video, this doesn't look powdery and it feels really lightweight on my skin. This gives medium to medium full coverage depending on how you apply it, and has a really pretty nice natural matte finish that's really smoothing and flattering on my pores and any texture. And this is a very rare powder foundation that looks and wears beautifully throughout the day without any primer or any setting spray. Now, if I have any dryness or flaking going on, I need to make sure my skin is prepped really well, and I do have to work a little bit extra at patting those areas down with a sponge so the dryness isn't exaggerated so it doesn't show. So for that reason, and because this has a more matte finish that really does well on my shine prone areas, I think this is better for normal to oily skin. This is a powder foundation that comes out more for me in those hot humid months like we're having now, especially if I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to prime and spray. It's easy and reliable and always looks good. This powder foundation has been in my life the longest. It's the one I reach for the most because of its versatility and reliability. And I think a lot of people dismiss it thinking it's going to look cakey or heavy, but it doesn't at all. This is MAC Studio Fix Powder Plus Foundation. It retails for $44 and you get quite a bit of product in here. And the shade range is amazing. On the MAC website, there are 53 shades, and on Ulta's website, there are 48. The shade I wear is NC25. In the summer, it can be a little bit light. I usually just dust some bronzer over it and make it work. I probably should get a deeper shade for summer. This is incredibly creamy, smooth, and beautiful on all areas of my skin, no matter how it's behaving. If I have dry, flaky areas, it works, and it works great on my shine-prone areas too, and gives me incredibly versatile coverage. I can take this from sheer to nearly full coverage. It's smoothing, it looks great on my pores, and gives a flattering, natural matte finish. I barely have to blot away any shine during the day, maybe once, twice on a really long day. And that's without primer or setting spray. And even when I do get shiny, it's not greasy shiny. It feels really lightweight on my skin. And this is probably the longest wearing out of any of these powder foundations on my skin. Even without primer and setting spray, this is pretty bulletproof for a powder foundation. If you have normal to oily skin, this is a no-brainer. It's beautiful. And I know everything works differently for everyone, but this looks great on my dry areas. Now, my skin is always prepped well, but for that reason, I think it could work for you too if you have dry skin. Not everyone with mature skin has dry skin. So I think there's an option here for everyone if you're wanting a powder foundation to throw on really quickly. I truly think these are all great options, and there is an option for every skin type here. I would love to know if you tried any of these or if you plan to. Let me know in the comments, and if you want to see my thorough foundation reviews, be sure to check them out here. I hope you found this helpful and enjoyable. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.